I too have suffered from chronic fatigue syndrome. I've had struggled with burnout many times in my life. I decided to become a physician when I was 6 months pregnant and single with my first child. I went to medical school. I eventually married his dad, a whole other story, and loved it, loved medical school. And by second year, my first child was sleeping through the night, and we decided it was time to have a second child, which was great. We got pregnant, but unfortunately, I had a miscarriage, which I'm sure many of you have experienced that, and it's no fun. And, it's a grief to be grieved for sure. Went through that and then got pregnant again. And we were so lucky because at 12 and 13 weeks, everything looked normal and great with this baby. We were doing awesome. I was still in school. Unfortunately, I'd lost a number of other friends and family members. So I was definitely grieving. And we went away on vacation and I came back and I realized that something wasn't quite right. And sure enough, this baby wasn't developing normally. And I was told that this baby was also going to die. He ended up dying at 17 weeks and I hemorrhaged and had to be rushed to the hospital. And I'm so grateful for the modern medicine that we have today. We're so blessed to have so many resources available to us. And truly, if I had not had that accessibility, I would have been another statistic on that long list of women of eons of dying in labor. It's not an easy thing to birth a child at times. And we're so lucky when we can get the medical help when we need, no matter what we're going through. I went through this very intense experience after that. That really crashed me into something that I call the dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul was coined, I believe, by Joan Borysenko. She certainly talks a lot about it in her books. And my interpretation of this is that we have a physical body, a mental, emotional, a spiritual, energetic body. And when all of those systems go down at once, then you are down in like your bottom pit. And it is truly a dark night of the soul where you go on a journey and your choice in that journey is to basically quit everything or to find something new inside of yourself, to find something deep inside. I was lucky that that is indeed what happened to me. And I came out of that dark, dark, dark place that I was in, where I was lying in bed for months. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I had IVs in my arm for nutrition. I was rattled with anxiety and just deep, deep, deep suicidal depression. It was a very, very, very hard place to go. And if it wasn't for all the amazing healers that came to see me, I don't know that I would have made it. And indeed, they confessed years later that they were afraid I was going to die. I got out of that place and through all this amazing healing and got well enough to move to the couch. And I spent most of a year on the couch where I was able to read and I was able to, interact with my family, but I was on the couch and that's pretty much all I could do. And I had to sleep for a lot of time if I wanted to do anything else. If I wanted to go out to a picnic, I had to rest for most of the day on the couch before I could go to the picnic. And this continued, and I was trying so hard to figure out how to treat myself. I was, medical student, and then I ended up going back to school and finishing my school and going and doing my residency. And I was still just dragging around this bag of exhaustion with me everywhere. I felt like I was 102, and felt so old. And I was only in my early 30s, and I just felt ancient because I was so tired all the time. I was throwing everything I could at it. I was consulting with these amazing physicians. I was trying new therapies. I was doing all kinds of things. And I knew it was a puzzle. Chronic fatigue was a puzzle. And I had to find one piece that worked and then the next piece and the next piece. I finally figured out the last piece of the puzzle. I got my mercury fillings out and I detoxified from the mercury. And oh my gosh, my world opened up. All of a sudden, I had so much more vitality. I had so much energy. I started living life to its fullest. I didn't have any of those afternoon slumps. I started working out. I was meditating. I was more fit than I'd ever been. I had another kid. I was running clinics. I was teaching at the naturopathic medical school, teaching clinicians how to become physicians. I was what I called big wave surfing. I was like full on all the time. I worked 17-hour days. I didn't get tired. my switches were my breaks, and that was enough. I loved being a mom. I loved cooking. I loved being a doctor. I could roll between all of my different roles. I could roll between my roles and just make it happen. And that was enough for me. I didn't even experience that dip around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I didn't use any caffeine. And I knew that I would never, ever, ever get chronic fatigue again. And I could look people in the eye who came to me, very sick patients, and I could look at them and I could hold the hope for them that they could get better because I had gotten better. And a lot of the journey that I learned in that time that I was really sick, I would never give back. It was such a gift. And I truly believe that every challenge that we experience is an opportunity for us to learn something new, for us to grow a little bit more, to us to go a little bit deeper into ourselves and come out stronger and healthier and happier for it. And that indeed did happen to me. And the growth that I had during that time really allowed me to be present with the most sick of the sick patients, who was indeed who I saw. So here I was doing great, seeing lots of complex ill patients. The hardest patients were sent to my clinic, and I felt really great. And like everything was going fine until one day it didn't. I crashed, literally. I had an accident and I injured my knee, and I refused to lose all of the amazing muscle strength I had gained. And I kept pushing through and did a bunch of workouts and ended up injuring my shoulder. And I was in such severe pain, I couldn't sleep. And I had a nice sprinkling of perimenopause on top of this. And I ended up going down the slide so fast, it was shocking, where I went down whoosh, the relapse slide like this. And before I knew it, I was staring at that big, dark hole. It was just looming right there in front of me. And I knew that I could easily fall into that hole and end up back in bed. Now, it's one thing to be in bed and take a year out of medical school. It's a whole other thing to take a year or 2 or 3 years out of and be in bed when you own a business and you have overhead and you have employees and your family is 100% dependent on your income. That is a different story. The only way that I could stop working and rest was to go bankrupt. And I didn't want to make my family bankrupt. I didn't want to take them down, have them go down with me. So I really didn't have a lot of choices. My only choice was to find a way out. Now, I had healed before, but the truth is that I knew kind of some of the things, some of the tools that you would need in your bag to heal chronic fatigue, but I didn't understand the path. I didn't really understand. I didn't have the map. I didn't understand how do you get from A to B consistently over and over and over again. So although I healed it once, I employed the same tactics and they didn't work. They didn't get me where I needed to go. And so I had to find a new way. And this way was a deeper way. I got up in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep because of the pain. And I just researched and I trialed and I erred and I trialed and I erred on myself. And then this amazing miracle happened. I thought all my patients would just run away from me, but the opposite happened. Patients came to me in droves and they all had chronic fatigue or burnout, and I was able to work with them as well. And very clearly before my eyes, as my patients sat there, the path, the map began to take form and shape, and I was able to consistently replicate the same things over and over and over to help these patients find their way back to vitality. This picture on the left is I was the one lying in bed staring at the ceiling and wondering, do I have any reason to hope, or is this just what I have? The tree has all of these roots, right? And I'm always about finding your root cause. But how do you know which root cause? And when you have so many root causes, how do you know which one to treat first? And this picture on the right is a story about me being able to break through some of my own glass ceilings. We all hold these limitations. We hold limiting beliefs inside of us. And it's always up to us to be willing to push through and break through our own glass ceilings. This happened for me. My father died a few years ago, and we put on a big memorial service, and you know how all that is when you're entertaining and doing festivities for 60 people. And then we left and went out to Eastern Oregon and spent time with my close extended family. And they were going to go take this hike, and my cousins were taking this hike. And I so wanted to go. It was a hike I'd done with my dad, and it was beautiful, and I really wanted to do it again. But I was scared. I was actually scared. I was tired from doing from the memorial service and my grief. And I wasn't sure I could make it. It was a 10-mile hike. So I drove there myself and I just decided I would just hike 2 miles and then I would call it good and just take myself home. So I parked my car, got out, and I hiked, and I kept going, and I kept going, and I kept going, and it was uphill, and I was panting, and it was felt rough, but I kept going and kept going and kept going, and sure enough, I made it up to the top. I made it to this lake where I got to go swim, and that's me hanging out with my one of my kids. And I skipped and ran all the way down that beautiful flowery trail, singing in my head, I just walked 10 miles. I have all this energy. And seriously, I drove home, cleaned the kitchen, cooked dinner for everybody, and packed up all our stuff the next day. And I never, ever, ever experienced a dip. And that is when I mean, I can't tell you the feeling of when you break through your own limiting beliefs. Maybe you've had that experience and you know what I'm talking about and just how good that is and how it carries you through your journey when you have another time that's challenging for you. So I want to share with you how it is that you can break through your own glass ceiling, your own limiting beliefs about what you think is possible for you.